we focused on the impact of typeface on driver demand. And we've looked at two commonly used typeface styles, or genres if you would, that are used throughout the auto industry. A humanist style that's typical of one set of vehicle manufacturers, and a square grotesque style that's typical of another. And this work in particular is striking quite a large national interest in both inside the automotive industry as well as in the general public. And what we found is that among male drivers, there's actually upwards of a 10% difference in glance time associated with one typeface or another over another. In essence, the humanist typeface required the driver's eyes, the men, to look off the road for about 10% less. Women, on the other hand, were much more muted in their responses. And this research in particular has really focused on the basic building blocks of information that's provided to the driver in the driving sphere. It's been presented throughout the automobile industry. It's received considerable media and public attention over the last few months. And perhaps what's most interesting about this work is it's looking for solutions. How do we take the content in the vehicle today and optimize it without beginning to restrict what the driver may be capable of looking at? How do we look at the basic building blocks of information flow and how that may be better structured to accommodate for the limitations of human capabilities? Perhaps most interesting from this work is the gender differences that we discovered. Where men, we saw again about a 10% difference in visual demand, women nothing. Well, the neurobiological differences between the genders, something that we often forget in terms of auto engineering, are just relevant and applicable to what we think about in the future of safety. So in particular, the two characteristics of typeface demand, the humanist typeface and the square grotesque typeface, have different character shapes and forms that allow an individual to perceive differences in words and letter shapes from the humanist design faster than the square grotesque design. In essence, if we think about a 9 can look awful like a G or can look far different, or 3 can look awful like an 8 or far different. Again, these are the milliseconds of time difference that when we have a fraction of a second to move our eyes off the road to gather information and come back and do that safely, these are the fractions of difference that are really making a difference. In this work in particular, we focused on the driver-vehicle interface, what's going on in the vehicle. In the past, there's been a considerable amount of work done by FHWA and others on what's called Clearview typeface, where we looked at optimizing the road sign information. And this very much follows along that area, but interestingly enough has been an area that the industry has forgotten. While there's ISO standardization work that's happened in this area, what's interesting as the technology realm and the screen developments have changed the information flow in front of the vehicle, in front of the driver, and in essence pixelized what we once stamped on a typeface. That's changed the fundamental properties of what we would like to optimally put on that screen. What's interesting about this area here, where you have fundamental regulations being developed through NHTSA and guidelines trying to minimize the demand and distraction placed in the driver. And within each of the automobile manufacturers, you have a tug of war, might you say, between the designers who are focused purely on style and grace and brand, and the engineers who are met with the practical limitations of what they can place in front of the driver. And what this work really highlights is the need for expanded communication between the design and engineers. How do we get the design folks to really talk to the engineers? How do we get the industry engineers to understand the constraints that are being placed on the design teams? How do we reinvent that relationship? And through this work, we've really opened channels to do that. We've now given everybody something new to talk about, something to understand how a data-driven environment such as the automobile engineering systems can be reinvented with new data and new understanding. Ultimately, where this will go, hopefully, is toward the personalization of information in front of the driver. We each have some personal preferences, whether we're an older adult who needs a little bigger typeface or type size, or a younger adult who's focused on brand and style. We all walk around with a smartphone or computer and tailor that information to what I like at a given time. How do we reinvent that driver-vehicle interface in the future to allow us to personalize that in much the same way we do our PCs every day? This work has been broadly very well received within the auto industry, from the OEMs to the Tier 1 suppliers and beyond. everybody is interested in how we can look at basic building blocks, how we can rethink ways to optimize the driver's relationship with the car.